Hey guys. So first off, how'd you like that intro? Second off, today is a pretty big launch day, one that I've been waiting for a while. BEACN, a new company, just released their BEACN mic, which is a premium USB dynamic microphone, which I covered in another video that came out today. I'll link to it down below. And also these two mixers, the BEACN Mix and the BEACN Mix Create. And I'd like you to know that I was super conflicted about these devices for a very long time, very similar to how most of you guys on the internet have felt, hopefully until today when you understand a little bit more. On one hand, the guys who created these devices are the same guys who made the GoXLR, which was a groundbreaking audio device and has become kind of a staple device on streamers' desks. So I knew the makers behind it had a pretty good track record for being innovative. And on the other hand, it looks like it's missing everything. Like there's no I/O on this thing. No XLR input, no line in, no line out, no headphone jack. It's just USB. So like as an audio device, what can it really do? Can a simple USB device end up being just as groundbreaking today as the GoXLR was 3 years ago? And as it turns out, yes it can. They did things in here that I didn't know you could do. And I want to show them to you because I think by the end of this video, you're gonna like this just as much as I do. So important note, there will be a full tutorial next week on how to set these up and use them, as well as how to set up the microphone next week. So if you'd like to see that, please subscribe to the channel. If you aren't already, hit the little bell, because that's what you're supposed to say during these plugs. And while you're down there, just hit the like button. Helps out a ton. Also, if you find yourself having questions and you don't want to wait a whole week for the tutorial, just subscribe to my personal channel, youtube.com/Harris Heller. I go live here on YouTube about 3 days a week usually, and we talk about gear like this. So hop on in there, jump in the live streams. I'll answer any questions you got. Full disclosure, this is not a sponsored video. They're not paying me at all. BEACN does not get to see this video before I post it. They did, however, send me these devices to test and review. It's important you know that. Cool. So the BEACN Mix and the BEACN Mix Create are available to purchase today. They are $149 and $199 respectively. Normally, I would start with the low-end model here and work my way up, but this isn't really a low-end version of this. It's a completely different machine. And I actually think there's a large group of people that would really like this. Maybe even you. So let's start with the Mix Create, and let's start by summarizing its predecessor, the GoXLR. This is the GoXLR Mini, but same idea. It'll get the same point across. The GoXLR was your audio hub. All of your sounds came through this. Your PC sounds came through it through USB. Your microphone plugged into it. Your console's plugged into it. Your second PC, if you're on a 2-PC system, connected to it through the line in and the line out right there. And then everything finally came to you once this mixed that all together through the headphone jack. Essentially, all of your audio got sent through this thing. You controlled it with these 4 really cool faders, and it controlled everything. But it could only control what came through this device. Meaning if you had a separate USB microphone that connected directly to your PC, you couldn't control it or use it with the GoXLR. You were kind of out of luck. This is where the Mix Create works differently. The Mix Create plugs into your PC and essentially takes over as the audio brain of your PC. Now, any audio device that you plug into your PC, this thing has control over. It kind of turns your PC, I said PC so many times this sentence, but it turns your PC into one gigantic GoXLR, but with a ton of new features. You can plug any USB mic into the PC. The Mix Create will control it. If you have a dual PC setup, you now plug your PC directly into the line in and line out of your PC motherboard. This sees those and uses them. You can plug speakers into the motherboard or into some kind of outboard gear. This sees that output and can control it. It's actually a really clever idea. By eliminating all the I/O off the device itself, you end up opening up the entire system to unlimited I/O. I mean, if you wanted to, you could technically use a GoXLR as just like an I/O hub with a bunch of hardware inputs and outputs and control it with the Mix Create. I don't know if you really want to do that. You end up getting a ton of redundancy and it would get totally convoluted, but you could do that. And now with all these crazy new inputs and outputs that you found yourself in control of, they've given you some really powerful tools and some really clever features. Let's start with the powerful tools. I'll show you the 4 main ones. First one, you have a dynamic routing table that shrinks and grows as you add and remove channels. That way you can control which sound sources get sent out to which outputs. For example, you can turn on and off the music in your voice chat channel to show your friends in Discord a really great song, or a terrible one. No one's judging you. You can have submixes, meaning you can control what you're hearing separately from what your chat is hearing. It works very similarly to the WaveXLR by Elgato, where you can, for example, make the music louder on your stream than it is in your ears. Then once you figure out the right volume ratio, you can lock them back together, and when you turn the knob, it adjusts both of them. This is a little different from Elgato, however, because Elgato is using an offset lock, whereas the Mix Create uses a ratio lock. So the difference in volume on the Mix Create will always be the same. Feature number 3 is exactly like the GoXLR that people really liked. It's called mute modes. So you can change whether a channel's mute button mutes it to everywhere, or maybe you only want to mute your voice from your teammates and you can still talk to your chat. And the last powerful feature, not only can you add up to I think 9 channels, I'm not sure if that's a hard limit or not, but as you add more channels, there are the little arrow buttons over here on the side. And as you hit the arrow buttons, the screen scrolls through the different channels, so you have complete control over all of your audio inputs. But now, let's go to the cool features, because these are all new. For example, as you're using the arrow buttons to scroll through the channels, maybe you have one most important channel that you always have on your screen. If you lock the channel in, it will shift to the far left, and it will always be there no matter which channels you're showing. Next one, and this is probably one of my favorites, you can add 2 different outputs to the personal mix. Like I use headphones that are plugged into my BEACN mic, and I also use a set of big boy speakers that are plugged directly into the line out on my motherboard. And you can switch back and forth between them. Very nice. Not only does it save the different volume levels separately for whichever output you're using, but they also added a shortcut. All you have to do is hold down any of the 4 knobs for about 1 second, and it's gonna switch the outputs for you. They also added a secret extra voice chat output. That way, let's say you're using a dual PC setup and you have your Discord set to your streaming PC, therefore you also have this plugged into your streaming PC. You can also route your voice over to your gaming PC for in-game chat. Like that's one of those features that I don't know how many people are gonna use it, but it's more of an example of how the guys behind this device are trying to go the extra mile and think of everything. And then lastly, you'll notice that little broadcast button under the arrow buttons that lets you listen to your audience mix so you can check in and hear what they hear. It's a really impressive system. I would highly recommend it for anyone who's looking for complete control over their stream audio. But what about the people who don't? What about the people who just want to be able to control their Discord volume, their game volume, their headphone volume, and they want it to be easy? That is what the BEACN Mix is. You can see the software is completely different. We've lost submixes, we've lost the routing table, we've lost pretty much everything except for 4 faders and all of your audio sources. And all you have to do is find your source, like for example Discord here, and drag it onto the fader that you want to control it. And now you have a Discord fader. And then clicking the knob will mute that channel. The guys at BEACN were able to get some interesting analytics before they left the GoXLR team. And it turns out like 70 to 80% of GoXLR users never touched the routing table and never changed their mute modes. So the idea behind the less expensive BEACN Mix was to create a product for that user base. Now, the big obvious downside to a device like this is that there's no XLR input. So you can't plug an XLR mic right into this. And I totally get that. That's definitely a downside. Your options would be to either pick up an XLR interface that you would plug into your PC, subsequently being able to control with this, or maybe now would be a good time to check out the other video we posted today on the BEACN mic that they released today, which is their high-end USB dynamic mic. Naturally, they made that mic work very well with both of these devices. So link to that video down in the description below, or it's somewhere on the screen because we're at the end of the video. So click on that if you want to watch it. If you're still watching, please hit the like button before you leave. And as always, happy streaming.